Okay, we're ready?
Well, good afternoon. It's almost time to go to dinner, so let's just stop now and go to dinner. Anyhow, my name is Joe Suttle. Last time I checked, that was my name. I actually have a true ID in California. There are people who are trying to get them who find out that they're supposed to have their license by 2020, and they can't get an appointment until April of 2020. That's how many people there are in California who need a true ID. Anyhow, this is a little bit about me. I'm not going to tell you who I am or what I do. I have too much fun. I've been having too much fun for too long. So that's me. If you want to know about me, you can ask me. My wife's sitting in the back corner. She'll definitely tell you everything.
Even all the stuff you don't tell us?
Yeah, all the stuff I don't tell you. Like what's missing from up there. Anyhow, we're here to talk about public speaking. The outline, the description, you wondered what this was all about. But we're going to talk about ditches. There are ditches in our lives. If you grew up out in the country, you really knew what ditches were. If you grew up in the city, you called them gutters. But anyhow, imagine yourself, oh, fun.
It turned off when you touched the screen.
Yeah, it sure did. No, it shouldn't have.
Did it loosen up the HDMI?
Let's see what happened here.
Oh, there you go.
Always have a plan B. So, it's supposed to work. Yes, it works. Oh, I forgot to plug in the speaker, guys. You don't understand this, but imagine you're in this garage working. It's a nice, quiet day. You don't know what's going on, but it's a nice day. The clouds are in the sky. That poor young kid just came out to work. Bob, who got out of his pickup truck, is here. But oh, what was that? That's just what ditches can do for you. They can either destroy your day or they can make your day. Think about the kid who was under the lawn tractor. If the ditch hadn't been there, when that truck swerved off the road, he would have come right to where that kid was. Scared the living daylights out of him. But some ditches are good, some ditches are bad. And the ditches depend on who builds them and for what purpose they build them. In public speaking, we find out there are ditches all the time. Today we're going to talk about some of those ditches. But if you look back in history, you can go back and find that Rome built ditches to carry water all over the Roman Empire. Yes, we think we have all this knowledge that we can go dig irrigation canals and irrigation ditches. In Colorado, I understand they even have ditch associations. Now, we thought OS2 Warp was weird. Imagine they have ditch associations. Well, actually, the ditch associations control distribution of water. And when I was researching ditches, why would he research ditches? Well, I'm looking for information. Once I get started, you know, I go down rabbit holes. And I discovered that if you buy a piece of property that has a ditch on it, you cannot take any water out of it because you weren't a member of the ditch association when the ditch got built. Say what? That's a ditch. You know, that's like taxation without representation, I guess. But there are other ditches. In World War I and World War II, all over Europe you find trenches built. Soldiers fought from trenches. That was because they were downhill and they could pop their head up and take you out. That was what World War I and World War II were about. But do you realize that those trenches or ditches were full of all kinds of junk? They say that almost a third of the men who died in the First and Second World War, other than the ones who tried to land at Normandy, got killed by what was in the ditches. Trench gas, trench gangrene, gas gangrene, and trench foot. You know how bad athlete's foot can get. Well, trench foot was way worse. The diseases they fought killed as surely as an enemy bullet. Remember, this war was soldiers standing in that junk. That water in the bottom wasn't just water. There were rats who ran through, rats who decided to poop and pee all in the trench, and everything else that went on. So they picked up the disease in their feet, and they couldn't do much about it. If you go to Europe, you can find rebuilt trenches. I call them resurrected trenches, but the trenches are still there, little hills and valleys around. They even got pretty smart in digging trenches that would stop tanks, because the tank would go off the edge of the ditch and there was no way for the tank to get back up. Well, that's a trench, but this is a trench. None of us is old enough to remember this. If you're old enough to remember this, you're older than whoever. I don't think you're here if you remember this. No, you're not here if you remember this. You're going down. This was the Panama Canal, the trench or ditch of all ditches. That was a mess. Do you realize that over 5,700 men died building the Panama Canal? A trench. They died from malaria. That was the chief cause of death. This was a section of the Panama Canal where the job of the men and their machines, mostly the men, was to cut back the hill so that there would never be any landsides for dirt to fall into the canal. That was what they were doing. Eventually, ships sailed from east to west, from Atlantic to Pacific and vice versa. So you get your containers and we get our containers, and we find out it's the same junk, whether it's on the East Coast or the West Coast. It's surprising. I would expect on the East Coast I'd find stuff that says made in Ireland, and on the West Coast it would say made in China. No. Washington, D.C., we stopped there on the way. The souvenirs all say made in China. Huh? Even in the White House gift shop, mind you. Now, this is a modern ditch. I can remember when I was going to college in Iowa, there were some ditches like this. You had to be very careful you didn't drive off the road, because when you drove off the road, you didn't just go down in a little dip in the side of the road. You had to get pulled out by a tow truck. And if you happen to go over the edge into the ditch, you might have gone over like that. Oh, multiple amounts of damage to your car. So how do you get out? What do you do about ditches in your life? What do you do about the ditches as you speak in public? As you speak to a group at work? As you lead a small group where it happens to be, and you want to talk to somebody and share how to put the batteries in this thingy. Have you ever looked at some of the electronics now? Where's the screw that releases the cover so I can get the batteries out? You could teach a class on anything other than driving. But anyhow, what happens in speaking is fear gets to us. If you walked out on that platform over the edge of the Grand Canyon, that's fear, because there's nothing underneath you except a glass floor, I do believe. And they say it's a long ways down. But that ditch brings fear. And you know, if you tried to traverse from one end of the Grand Canyon to the other, you'd find 277 miles of fear. And fear is one of the things that really stops us from public speaking. You ask somebody, would you come speak at our conference? I can't do that. Well, we're going to help you work on fear today. Because that's one of the things. I grew up in Oklahoma. Yeah, that's a little state over there somewhere. I think I point in that direction. Anyhow, we had in our side of town, we had ditches. The other side of town, they had gutters. Same stuff ran through them. But let me tell you this. I can remember that every spring when we had floods, we'd all want to go walk in the water, you know, all the kids. Splash, 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 splash. My grandmother would always say, make sure you walk where the driveway is, otherwise you'll fall in the ditch. Now I'm standing in 2 feet of water. The ditch is 2 to 3 feet deep, and all of a sudden it struck me. I could drown. That's more water than I am tall. Wait a minute. So, that's about ditches. But when I started to think about what keeps us from speaking, I remembered a movie. A movie? Yeah, from the 50s. You're all old enough to remember. It was called The Naked Jungle, and it starred the guy that played in the Ten Commandments and a whole bunch of other movies. What was his name? Heston. Charles. Heston. You got it? You got it? Okay. He starred in the movie. He played a guy named Linnegan who went to Brazilian rainforest. He was going to farm down there, but he heard about some super intelligent ants in the rainforest. And so what Heston, aka Linnegan, did was he dug a moat around his house. Yeah, a ditch. He's not in England with some castle or France. He's in Brazil. In this moat, that was his defense against the ants. Because when the ants came marching, oh, I started to sing that song. We don't want to do that. When the ants came marching to his house, he had his workers fill the ditch. They controlled it upriver. They opened the gate and they filled the ditch. And then they put gasoline in the ditch. Their object was to burn the ants. They tried. It didn't fail. Then they looked and they saw the ants on the trees, all over the trees, chewing leaves off. And the leaves would drop down into the water and gasoline. And the ants had rafts to float across the ditch. Oh, this is scary, right? I like science fiction, man. But what happened was that they saw what was going to happen. They poured more gasoline in, lit it on fire, and then opened the floodgates and washed all the ants out of the ditch, flooded all of his property, washed the ants away. Ditches sometimes can be good. There's the ants from that movie floating across on leaves. His moat became his protection. And we can build ditches to protect us as we speak. Well, life goes on. Time to get to the real stuff you came to hear about. How can we help you build ditches for public speaking? We can do it with 6 things. I have 10 fingers, but there's 6. We can do it with 6 things. We're going to talk about 6 P's today that keep cropping up when you think about ditches that either destroy us in public speaking, or that if we build ditches, we can protect ourselves from what's happening. We're going to look at things that make presentations or speakers fail or struggle. A whole bunch of things. And we're going to talk about 6 P's. The first one is purpose. You need to have a purpose or goal for what you're doing. If you don't have a purpose, why are you wasting your time doing it? Really? Think about it. You know, if you don't have a purpose for Facebook, okay, never mind. I read my Facebook too. I watch Facebook. But we need a goal. We need a goal. Goal needs to give us somewhere to go other than off into the sunset. Let's make it easy to accomplish our purpose. That is, we want to get where we want to be. Somebody can build a ditch to keep you from getting where you want to be. Little things or people who distract you, who misdirect you. Let's make it easy. There's an acronym we can use for our goals. It's SMART. S-M-A-R-T. If you have goals, let's figure out how to set some goals so we can get from where we are to where we want to be. First thing is, your goal needs to be specific. Don't say, I want them all to feel good. That's not very specific. Or, I want to get to New York. Where in New York? Be specific in setting goals. Measurable. Your goals should be measurable. How do you know you got there? You know the thing about the kids in the car, right? What do they all say? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Your goal has to be measurable. It has to be achievable. Achievable means it's within your means of reaching that goal. If you have never run a marathon, don't jump up and say you'll run a marathon with me tomorrow. That's not achievable. You've never done it before. You've never trained to do it. Your goal should be achievable. Then it should be realistic. You say, Joe, that sounds like achievable. No, realistic is different. It's something you could actually do. You know, if you're not a swimmer, would you say you're going to swim the English Channel? If you trained and said, I've done this Ironman and that Ironman and that Iron Woman, I'm going to swim, I might believe you. Your goal has to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. This is not a government contract. You set a time for your goal. When do you expect to finish this? When you have all of these things, you can actually get somewhere. SMART. It's an acronym. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timed. My slides will be up sometime. I'll get them to Neil tonight. You can download them. But set clear objectives. State your objective when you're speaking. Even when you give a speech, have an objective. What's your goal? I want you to get over the ditches in your life. I want you to see them and do something about them. There's lots we can do. Robert Heinlein, you know, he's a science fiction writer, said this: in the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia, and we ultimately become enslaved by it. What do you waste your time on? The reason I came up with Robert Heinlein, when I was in junior high school, and maybe my first year in high school, I love science fiction. Only problem is I came to realize, oh, the second part of that is fiction. That's a story. There's no alien in this box. I can't fly faster than on my own, faster than the speed of sound. Anyhow, in speaking, we keep following the same path in what we do. We don't plan it, we wing it, we say we can do it, just we'll walk in and do it. Doesn't work. You have to do some things. You have to prepare. What's preparation? He says, prepare? Yes. You have to do several things for preparation. You have to sit down and design your speech, write an outline, and outline. Don't write it out word for word to begin with. Write an outline. Get your flow right. Then as you write your speech, your message, your training, make sure it flows, that it doesn't go in rabbit holes over here and down there. Get your path right. Make it flow. Then we get to do this. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. If you haven't rehearsed, you'll never be able to speak. You have to know what you're talking about, but you have to rehearse so you keep that flow that's going. Show some emotion when you speak. You know, laugh, have fun. But above all, you have to do the rehearsal thing. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Don't stop rehearsing. I drive my wife nuts. The other night, she knew I was working on this speech, and she actually went to bed and didn't even say goodnight. What? That's a ditch in my life. I expect you to say goodnight. Good night or something, and I would have said, okay, I'm something. But anyhow, rehearse. It's a part of your planning. When you develop a speech, always plan. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. And in your planning, work on a plan B. What happens if? Yeah, what happens if? You know that if always works. When we got here Friday morning, we were looking for batteries for the changer. I actually told Louis I had 2 batteries upstairs. Not these 2. There's another set in my computer bag back there for just in case. There is also a spare battery for my mouse. And in case my luggage got lost or my computer bag, one of these was in my, not my computer bag, my camera case, and one was in my suitcase. What would you like to lose, United or American Airlines? I don't care. When I get here, I have 3 copies of this program. That's part of Plan B. The other thing is, if this doesn't work, I can always use my finger. That works too. But always work on a Plan B. That's part of your preparation. What happens if the electricity went out? What happens if there was supposed to be a projector? How would you do this? Something to think about. Preparation helps you take care of the unforeseen, the little ditches that can come up in your life. Check the slide, check the remote. You may not have noticed, but between speeches, I actually came up and made sure I could read this. Why would you make sure you could read it? Well, there's a pair of glasses in my pocket just in case. And just in case you didn't know it, in my computer case is another pair of glasses, different prescription. I actually set this down and checked to make sure I could read it. That's Plan B. It's gone. Anyhow, check out everything. As you rehearse and work to make it all happen, here's what you have to do. Rewrite, rewrite, rewrite. Keep rewriting the speech. My wife must have thought I was crazy because I think for 3 nights now I have rewritten this, moved slides around, changed words. You don't stop. It doesn't sound right, so you have to do something else. Above all, it's the people. That's a ditch. I'm not saying you're bad. I'm saying people are why you're here. And that can become a ditch when you think you're the most important thing. It's your audience that's most important. It's those people out there. I mean, if you're a teacher, you're not the most important person in the world. You're here to teach them something. So get it out to them. Know your audience so you can connect with them. Here's what happens. You're an expert at something. And you got a group of people, and you need to know what matters to your audience, and then you can work on your presentation. If you just decide to talk on and on and on, you're in trouble. It goes right over their head, or they go to sleep. That's why after lunch is the hardest thing. I did teach for 5 years at Pacific Bell, the phone company. And the hardest thing I had to do was every day after lunch to keep the class awake for an hour. Yeah, it was hard. But I solved that problem. I had in my class a 2,000 microfarad electrolytic capacitor, which is about this big around and about that high, with 2 terminals on it. I would plug that into the power supply, and the first morning in class I would say, and if you decide to go to sleep in class, unplug the paper clips, take a giant screwdriver, and put it across the 2 terminals. Do you know what it sounded like? It sounded like, well, that was weak. Like that. And I said, I'm going to bring this capacitor over beside your head. I had to keep them awake. Anyhow, when you give a speech, you may be an expert, but you're trying to get that into them through this. So whatever you do, it's the people. Make connection with the people. Let your eyes make contact. Make them smile. See them smile. You know, when they smile, they're there. When they can actually remember Charlton Heston's name faster than you can, you got it made. Anyhow, talk to your audience like you would talk to a friend. Yeah, like a friend. Or a kid that you don't want to yell at. Don't talk at them. Talk to them. I hate people who yell when they talk to me. You're yelling at me, I'm in trouble for something. That's what being yelled at means. Get in here now! That was why I didn't stay out late at night. Our rule was, the street lights are on, you better be in here. So, treat your audience nice. Engage them in all kinds of activities. You know, they say there are 2 sides to the brain. I'm not going to get into one side's male, one side's female. Or did I get that backwards? Well, anyhow, there's 2 sides to the brain. They say the right side of the brain, this is the right side, Joe. That's their right side, but this is the right side of the brain. The right side of the brain is where creativity, emotion, and intuition reside. The left side of the brain is that linear, logical, sequential, analytical, and objective side. It's 2 sides of your brain. As a speaker, if you want to get out of the ditch, you've got to talk to both sides of people's brains. You've got to connect with them. Engage them up front with some kind of a story. Remember the Ditch movie? That was all that was for, was to get your attention that ditches can mess up your life. And they happen to do it sometimes when you least expect it. Be kind to everybody. Above all, make some contact. Now, our next P is picture. Say what? Yes, picture. The images and words you put on the screen, what are they? What about them? If you over-depend on, oh my gosh. That's what can happen when you get a computer and Microsoft Office or Open Office or LibreOffice, whatever you have. This can become death by PowerPoint. What do you mean death by PowerPoint? Well, it's called that for a reason. The ditches, you and I tend to get derailed by visuals, and we want cute little things that bounce across the screen, words that fade in and fade out. We want to be the next movie director who's going to win an Oscar. No, don't kill people with PowerPoint. Do something else. What happens up here, you notice there's nothing happening up here, right? That's intentional. What happens up here goes with your purpose. What is the purpose of your presentation? I'm going to actually give you some examples of big ditches in presentations. Yeah. That's a slide you're supposed to understand up here that tells you how rivers are formed. How are rivers formed? My gosh, I can't read a word of that. This person happens to be a college professor. Put this screen up for a college class. Bad background. White letters on this bad background that disappear. It's just too much. Way too much. And weird color combinations. In plain English, it violates all the rules everybody tries to teach about giving presentations. But just wait, it gets worse. That was an actually company corporate slide in a presentation to customers. Gee, that looks pretty bad. And it was actually voted the worst PowerPoint slide ever in a recent survey. Well, we've got this one. Another college professor who put a slide up for their class, make it clear, structure, outline first. Bad color combinations. Anyhow, that one's bad. Now this is another one. Presentation guideline. Notice what they say at the bottom. Less is more. This is too much. It's a guideline. Paint the stripe on the floor is a guideline. Not get 2 trucks and 2 cans and then go to the paint store at Kellymore paint store and pick up 6 brushes and 3 rollers and no. The guideline needs to be in line with your goal. Smart. There's some other distractions you need to watch out for in giving presentations. The room can do it to you. The lights are bad, the lights are too good. You know, if the light shone on the screen and you couldn't see what was up there, that would be a distraction. What you do, and the new thing now is people love to give their speech like this. And then, if you do la la da 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 da, and then they talk some more, and then they look, their outlines on their phone. Now, if you put it in an iPad, I use the Apple word, okay, sorry. If you put it in an iPad or a Samsung tablet or something bigger, that might be okay because you can walk around like it's a book. But when you have to, and I'm sorry, when I look at my cell phone, yeah, okay. So how they read notes on this, I have no idea. In your rehearsal that you're doing under preparation, whip out your cell phone, put it in selfie mode, stand it up against something, and video yourself giving your presentation. Hey, you got it in audio, you got it in a video. You discovered that you keep sticking your finger up your nose, or some such thing, or always pulling on your ear. you'll find out what's happening. So take a video of yourself, find out. But the last rule we're going to look at in this part is the 666 rule. What is the 666 rule? I've heard that number somewhere before. Well, it's not that rule. This is a different 666 rule. Because in every one of my presentations here, I've said, don't put too much on the screen. Somebody hit me with this in a presentation session, and the 666 rule is 6 words per bullet point, 6 bullet points per slide, and 6 minutes per slide. And I saw the 6 minutes per slide, and I wanted to send this person a nasty note and say, 6 minutes on one slide? You must be a college professor who puts up one slide, they want you to read, and nothing on that slide will be on the final test. That's a college professor. That's why I flunked zoology twice in college. I think I flunked Western civilization once in college. I may be smart, but I wasn't smart enough to know that what was up there wasn't what was going to be on the test. Why do you put it up there if it's not on the test? Anyhow, the other thing is, you notice one thing is important on this slide. Not all three. All three are important, but one at a time. And if you put all of them up there, I've read your speech already and I know where we're going. Well, we talked about fear at the Grand Canyon, fear in other places, and how fear can destroy you. Fear will destroy you when you strive for perfection. You can't do it perfectly. If you could do it perfectly, you would be that holographic robot up here in front who makes no mistakes and who occasionally mispronounces words because he's programmed to say L-I-V-E is live. Okay, now, would you like to live or die? Okay. Perfection will stop you in your tracks because you get so much fear. You get super nervous because I made a mistake. I forgot what I was doing. You get so wrapped up in what you didn't do because you're afraid you're going to make a mistake that you can't remember how to get out of where you are to get back to where you're supposed to be. Did I lose you there? That's good. I wanted to do that. Fear comes along and slaps you upside the head. Fear of failure will drag you down faster than the coffee falling off the back table or you spilling a glass of water on the table. Fear is what stops us quicker than anything else. Hoping for perfection only makes you more nervous, gives you more fear. Don't let fear keep you from doing it. You're in control. You can get away from fear if you want to. Some people want to memorize their speech, but if you do, it'll sound canned. Some people want to read it, and every now and then I hear somebody on the radio and occasionally on television who says, Friday, 7 to 9, breakfast, 9 to 10:15, John Edwards, welcome to Warp Stock, Neil Waldauer. Don't do that. Don't let fear make you read your speech. You'll sound like a robot. It's you up here. I know it's really me, but it's you up here giving the speech. You're delivering to your audience. Now, what can you do? Well, Zig Ziglar said this: fear has 2 meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. The choice is yours. The choice is mine. We can do it. ditches. What are they to you? What can you do to get out of the ditch? What can you do to avoid a ditch? You need to remember 6 things. Purpose, preparation, that's where you rehearse, remember, rewrite, make it sound natural, like it's you talking to somebody. It's the people. They're the reason you're here. They came to listen to you. They didn't have to be here. They could be outside in the hall having 6 cigarettes or 2 beers or whatever. They came to listen to you to get something. It's the people. Make them think and make them feel. And then there's the pictures, the visuals. You know, all those little things that fly across the screen. There's nothing there now. Don't let them become a distraction. Your pictures. Don't let them become a distraction to your audience or to you. Remember the 6-6-6 rule, and that will help your visuals. Then there's perfection. Don't strive for perfection, because every mistake you make will make you more fearful. I'll never do this again. You'll never get me up there again. Don't let fear do that to you. You're in control. You're still you. Just talk. So, there you got it. Empty screen. It's not over. The ditches that can wreck your life as a public speaker or a leader in a meeting. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Oh, I missed a slide. Look at that. What are you going to do about it? That's the question. You can change it because you're in control. So when are you going to start? Someone said this: a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. And a plan backed by action becomes reality. You can be a public speaker. Just do that. Take your dream and do something about it. You can do that. You can do that. Dream on. Avoid the ditches. Any questions? Thank you very much.